I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're experiencing a little bit of feedback. If tech can bring it down a little bit, I guess. With that, could we get a roll call for the attendees tonight?
Commissioner Gaskell? Commissioner Gatto? Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Manny?
Here.
Commissioner Merrick?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Present.
Commissioner Truxell?
Here.
Chairman Gray?
Present. Okay, we do have a quorum. We'll move on to communications. Staff, is there any communications at this time?
No, other than the Odyssey item, that's number 3, is going to be continued tonight. So if anybody's watching or here, just to put that out there, it's going to be continued kind of indefinitely until they resubmit the association documents our attorneys are looking for. And then at that point, we're going to be reposting it. So we'll do a new newspaper notice, new mailings, just because it's been so long, just so anybody paying attention to this kind of knows where that stands.
Okay. Sounds good. At this time, we'll move on to approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 19th?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Truxell, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell to approve the January 19th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. We'll move on to item 1 for tonight. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Tinley Child Care Academy LLC a special use for a day or child care center at 7012 171st Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. May I have a motion to open the public hearing? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. I have received certification that the public hearing notice was published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after staff gives their presentation. So when you're ready, staff, if you can proceed.
There are a little more IT problems, so we might just be going verbally here and without you taking over there.
And I'll do my best to explain, since I have a copy of the slides here. Okay, so the property at 7012 171st Street is mid-block on 171st, east of Harlem, south of Midlothian Creek. It has 100 feet of frontage. The lot's a little shy of 33,000 square feet, part of Elmore's Oak Park Estate subdivision. On the property, there's a main building. It's a one-story brick frame that's existed for several decades. It's a little over 2,300 square foot. Also includes the basement. There is a second annex building located on the lot that's to the northwest of it. There's children's play lot equipment, and within the asphalt area in the front, into the side of the building, there are 8 striped parking spaces. This property that is currently operating as a daycare as Antico Academy, and in the past has received multiple special use permits for daycares. As I said, it's currently Antico Academy. It's been in operation since 1995 with no known parking issues to village staff and police. So we've got our visuals up here, so you can see the star with where it is on an aerial, as well as a front view of property. So in July of last year, This property had a previous petitioner that came to the village from international, with a business to be International Foundations Education. That petitioner received special use permit approval to continue a daycare under new ownership, but did not pursue purchase of the facility. So there is now a new owner. This is a current petitioner, Mr. Steve Chakra, of what will be Tinley Child Care Academy. He purchased the property last December and has been undergoing the state DCFS licensure approval process. He has been working with a temporary agreement with the previous owner of the property, who has a DCFS license, to operate temporarily under their existing DCFS approval. The petitioner came to us earlier in January with an inquiry on signage and was unaware that he needed to go through this process. So change of use process for all new businesses, as well as the resulting special use permit process. So staff has worked with him to try to expedite this to help hopefully keep the operation of the daycare moving. So you can see a little bit closer here of another visual of the front of the building. Again, they're existing as Antico, and the new ownership name will be Tinley Child Care Academy. Here's a plat of the property, so you can see the main building with the annex building behind to the left, as well as the aerial. And as far as zoning, so this is in the B3 General Business Commercial Zoning District. As I said, it's close to Harlem, and in 2005 it was rezoned from R2. There's overall a mix of business and residential in the area. To the east is single-family residential, R2. South is the R4. As far as the uses, there's residential use, as well as to the south is the Mayor Funeral Home. To the west is a vacant commercial space, as also part of B3. And then just to quickly summarize, the B3's intent is noted in the zoning code. It's for a wide range of commercial uses, generally serving the needs of motorists, and may include uses that would otherwise not be compatible in neighborhood or community type shopping centers. So as far as the special use permit approval process, daycares require special use permit. They have that opportunity in the R6, R7, B2, B3, B4 districts, and they are defined where 3 or more children, not related, are in the same premises for remuneration and care. Daycares, as far as a zoning use perspective, are unique. They typically can be viewed as commercial, but are also similar in nature to schools. They don't necessarily require drive-by traffic. They generally have limited hours with drop-offs, pickups, and do serve as a convenience to parents to be located near residential areas, hence the mix of uses. Special use permits do not run with the land. They only apply to the particular business owner and plan with the specific information that's provided in this approval process. If this changes, this new special use permit needs to be granted. Concerns that sometimes can arise with daycares are the appropriate of the use to continue at that location, as well as parking, stacking needs as related to pickups and drop-offs. So the petitioner's proposed use is largely expected to be the same as what is already operating as Antico Academy. So the petitioner has no plans to add or expand services. The hours will remain the same, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Ages of children remain the same, 6 weeks to 12 years old, with daycare and after-school summer camp programs. The maximum number of children under the current DCFS approval is 52 children. Right now, the facility only has 42, but that has been due to COVID, resulting in a drop of enrollment. The facility does allow up to 52, so the petitioner is proposing that maximum capacity. And the maximum number of employees right now is 7, as that is a lower student enrollment to have that ratio. So if they go up to 8, the current DCFS would, if they go up to 52, the current DCFS would require 8 employees. The intent has been from the petitioner to retain all current employees, as well as the director, who notably has been with the facility since 2005. Visitors on the site, like therapists and such, are by appointment only, and the tours usually happen after the school hours with prospective parents. This is all as per the staff report, so here are a few charts with information as provided by the applicant, how many children were in the program before having to reduce before their enrollment had a slight dip, when they were at the maximum of 52 children, a blend of infant, toddler, preschool, and this after-school program. The age break is for the former categories up to 5 years, and then after school is school-aged children, hence 5 to 12. Importantly, no proposed changes to these programs. And the age and program breakdowns may be adjusted according to the state requirements. So as far as the facility, the main building has, it's a single story, as I said, with a basement. The child care and operations are in the main building and with outside exposure as well. The secondary building is proposed as exclusively for storage. So this aligns with the zoning code. Zoning ordinance would prohibit multiple buildings serving a principal use. So storage is acceptable as accessory. The curriculum will remain the same. So it's emotional, cognitive learning, technology, STEM, physical activity. The petitioner proposes some cosmetic property improvements of painting, signage, refacing, landscaping, carpet, ventilation, maintenance, and there's also code compliance that will need to occur that will be with the change of use application in order to receive the certificate of occupancy. So one of these will include accessible parking and route on the site. As far as parking, so there's a bit of detail on this, but I'll try to go through it pretty succinctly. There's limited parking on the site, as you saw from the site plan. Parking is managed by the owner for the staff, drop-offs and pickups, and visitors. Again, the visitors are by appointment. The layout of the space has the 8 striped stalls. There are also some unstriped areas to the west that could accommodate roughly 4 vehicles. So as far as the way parking is configured, staff parks on that west side. The site does not have an accessible space, so they may lose one space when they restripe the lot to give that access aisle. As far as how many staff are there, the max is estimated about 5 to 6 because there are a few that sometimes carpool. There's a passenger van on the site, and generally drop-offs are typically what you'd expect for a daycare, 6 to 8 a.m., pickups 4 to 6 p.m., and it's done very efficiently where the staff is aware when the parent is coming, so the child's ready to go. Usually that's about 90 seconds, and typically no more than 3 at a time. So staff recommends a couple of conditions that I've underlined here. One is to add the accessible space, and the second is that property owners shall manage parking, drop-offs, pickups, visitations on site to avoid any stacking or blockage issues. That concludes my staff presentation. I have the petitioner, Mr. Steve Chakra, here, as well as his director and other staff, and I believe there's some members of the public as well.
Okay. Thanks, Lori. Mr. Chakra, if you or any of your staff wish to speak, you can approach the lectern, sign your name, and I'll swear you in. Just for the sake of time, I'll swear you guys all in. and then you, as you approach, you can sign in the book. So at this time, if you can all raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, proceed. You can begin speaking, Mr. Chakra, just speak into the mic, though.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to make it possible for us to have this hearing in a short notice. Special thank to Lori and Danielle. Like she mentioned, I didn't know, and then you guys make it happen because there's a lot of kids needed that service. So my name is Steve Chakra. I'm a scientist, been in healthcare since 1997, so I have 26 years of experience in healthcare. I've been director of laboratory services since 2012. Why daycare? That's what the staff is asking me. I think that it's important to have a meaningful job that gives back to the community. So money is great, but if there's no money, at the end of the day, that you gives back. I was a joint professor for Marine Valley, and I also was a joint professor at Eastwoods University. So giving back to the community, it's a rewarding that you cannot put a price on it. I am going to introduce my team member, and we're here to answer questions. You could introduce yourself. Tiffany's the director. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Townsend, and I'm the director of Antigua Academy, and I will continue to be the director of Tinley Child Care Academy. I have over 20 years of experience in child care. I have been the director for Antigua Academy for 12 years. I have worked there since 2005, so I've been there for 18 years. And I am glad to join Mr. Steve on this journey. I love what I do. As you can see, I've been there for 18 years. So I love what I do. I love children. I have 2 children of my own that attend St. George in Tinley Park. I'm also married. So this is an honor and a privilege to work with Mr. Steve in what I do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Townsend.
Yes, hi, I'm Corey Mangan. I've also been working at Antigua Academy since 2008 of September, so it's 14 years. I've been a teacher there and also now assistant director for 4 years. I have 2 children of my own. I love working with the children. It gives me joy every day when I go home after being able to help other families with the needs they need when they have to go to work, as I go to work to take care of their children so they can make a living and I can make a living as well. Thank you.
I have 7 children of my own. I know they're gonna laugh. I do, yeah. So that's why I need a daycare center.
Well, with that said, I'm going to ask some of our commissioners if they have any comments or questions, and if you're able to answer the questions, if they have any, we would appreciate it. So I'll begin with Commissioner Gatto. Any comments?
No question.
Okay, Commissioner Manning.
My only comment is I'm glad that you guys are continuing, the services, for the family that need them. But no comment besides that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
I just had a quick question. I recall this when it came up last time, and but I went looking for it. I couldn't see it. I see the conditions that you're recommending in here, but I couldn't recall what conditions, if any, we had on the last one. Are they similar, the same?
The conditions are the same.
Okay, all right. That answers my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Truxell.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good operation there, and some nice people running it, so you've been established for many years, so I'm glad it's gonna continue, and the best of luck to you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilton.
Yeah, my comments would be the same. We're glad you want to continue.
Thank you. We're very excited to have this opportunity. Thank you.
I echo the comments of the commissioners. It seems like it's staying the same with the hours, the curriculum, the experienced staff. So I have no comments other than the parking lot, as long as you come into code compliance with that. That was as stipulated in the staff report. I believe you're going to lose one of the 8 parking lots, but you do have stuff to the west. So, yeah, those are all my comments. If you don't have anything to add, you can sit down, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's a little this is kind of what we like to see out of the special uses, right? When stuff's continuing, they are related to obviously the operator, so if that changes, the owner changes, that to come back.
Right.
Now, some people say, oh, we're doing the same thing, and it may be completely different though in real life. This one's kind of unique in that you have some of the same directors, the same staff, and they
Right.
really are kind of proposing the exact same thing, not the same thing, but slightly different, and really increase the number of kids coming in there, so.
Right.
A little bit of a process, but that's why it's there to make sure there really is. And if there was any issues, it could get worked out, but there's none that you know of.
Right. Well, is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Yes, you do. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. My name is Kayla West. I'm a parent. I sent my 11-month-old daughter to Antico, and we have since she was about 5 months old. I will just say I'm excited to hear that the plans are for everything to remain the same. We think a lot of the staff and the care that our daughter receives there. I know that the primary issue in front of this commission is with regards to parking. And the assumption is that it's going to come into compliance in terms of a handicap accessible stall. My husband and I tend to drop our daughter off about 6:30 in the morning, and I tend to pick her up between 3:30 and 4, so slightly before the busy period in the afternoon. I've never once had to wait for a parking spot, so I just wanted to validate the assessment that the pickups and drop-offs do tend to be pretty quick. I might take a little longer because I tend to chat with the staff, but that's only because they're pleasant and personable, and sometimes I get to see cute babies. But so that I would validate that their assessment that parking is sufficient for the business needs.
Well, thank you, Ms. West, for your testimony. With that, is there anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, if there's no further comments or discussion from the Planning Commission, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, a motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is closed. Staff, if you can present the standards at this time.
Thank you. The first standard is regarding the public health, safety, morals, general welfare. This use will be conducted in a manner consistent with the current operations, promoting the general welfare of the public by providing the essential service of child care, and will be state licensed and will meet all building and fire code requirements. Secondly, the use is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and uses, and is relatively low intensity, and has operated since 1995 without any known issues. Thirdly, the use is compatible with existing development. Will reuse the existing building and site with no changes. The use will operate with similar hours, staffing, and capacity limits. And regarding the utilities, access roads, et cetera, those currently exist on the property. And then regarding the ingress, egress, the parking spaces for pickups and drop-offs is existing and has functioned without any known issues. They are to be managed by the property owner to avoid any parking issues or backups onto public streets. And then lastly, last two, this is regarding the meeting the other codes. The business and property will otherwise conform to all zoning, building, and fire codes, and will be licensed by the state. And lastly, regarding economic development, the use allows it to continue to operate as one under new ownership, and child care facilities provide employment themselves as well as a needed service for both residents and workers in the area.
Okay, thank you, Lori. At this time, may I have a motion regarding the special use permit for this item?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to petitioner Tinley Child Care Academy LLC, a special use permit to operate a daycare or child care center at 7012 171st Street in the B3 General Business and
I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay. The motion is carried. This item will go to the village board on, is it February 7th?
Yes, it will go February 7th.
Okay. So, Mr. Chakra, please be in attendance for that meeting, and good luck to you and your staff. And you, feel free to leave.
Or stay if we find it exciting.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 for tonight. Item 2 is a workshop regarding public hearing notice procedures in regards to a policy proposal. So we'll discuss as outlined. So, Dan, are you going to take point on this? Or?
I'll thank Jarrell for kind of setting this up ahead of time. He's got class on Thursdays, so he doesn't get to be here to kind of take credit for it, but I did a lot of the front end work, and then we kind of worked with Lori and Michael and myself as well to look at this a little bit different than anything that's kind of been before you guys before. Policy proposals could come straight from the board, but I think this is something that directly relates to obviously what comes before you guys. So you're kind of our first step in deciding what we're gonna do here. Historically, we've just kind of done it the way it's always been done, so it's just kind of been a verbal, this is what we do, and it does meet state and federal and all the laws, but that law is just to do a newspaper notice, so most communities have realized long ago that is not only the bare minimum, it's kind of less than it, because it's really the last thing people look at now. So we look at other ways to kind of get the notifications and for public hearings out there. Also kind of weighing the fact that there is a time and physical cost to, we could email everybody in the entire village about every public hearing, but that's probably too far. So it's, where do we kind of find the line in there? What's kind of been proposed before you here is essentially what we have for our existing policy, what we're doing currently. We're just trying to kind of formalize it. So for the most part, it's staying the same. The one thing that we have kind of tweaked a little bit is the signage requirements, which I can get into in a minute. And that's probably been the most inconsistent part of what we do, is we just really don't have the wherewithal to stay consistent with it. But for the most part, I can tell you that we have the public hearing posted in a newspaper between 15 and 30 days, which is the one thing that is kind of the state law requirement that we have to do. We have written notice, mailings that are sent out to any property owners within 250 feet of the project sites. One thing that has been talked about is with any of these, there's kind of like 2 levels of projects you'll see. There might be a special use for a daycare that's already been a daycare, or a fence variation, or something that's kind of smaller on an already developed parcel, for something that is Loyola or D.R. Horton's development, something that's doing a new kind of significant change to a site. So the one debate was, does that radius could it be a little larger for other sites that maybe have a bigger impact to the surrounding area? I've seen that in other communities. Some just have a flat number because it's simpler. Some kind of do that 2-tiered system. So right now we just do the flat 250. We haven't really had any issues with that, but just something, if you do have something to weigh in, that's one we've talked about a little bit. Then signage requirements. Right now, the signage requirements, we essentially have these pre-made, almost like real estate looking signs that we put in the ground. We do make sure those end up at any of the new development sites, but interestingly, because they're so small, when you put that on a 70-acre site, it disappears. And some of them are overgrown, or we can't really get them in there. So those signs are almost a little too small for those properties. But we also, they're kind of expensive. It's a lot of time and effort on staff's part to kind of take those, track them, put them out, pick them up, let the petitioners know they need to stay up there, and just kind of monitor them. Over the years, we've only had them for 5 years. We got them like right when I got here, and I think we've lost more than half of them already. Some were damaged and returned to us in pieces. Other ones just kind of disappeared. So it's kind of a tough thing to keep doing exactly what we're doing now because we don't have the number of signs. It's a constant cost and maintenance. But if you've ever been to other communities and you see something that's up for development, you'll usually see what's kind of pretty standard practice, which is a large white sign that says public notice on the top. And they're a little more eye-catching, a little more standard to, especially again, those big kind of new developments that we're looking at. So that's kind of what we've proposed now, is that kind of with new residential and commercial developments, the large developments, that those would have this larger sign that they would have to do. With the residential requests, we would still continue to basically do our current kind of smaller in the ground signage and provide those for residents. So we might need to order some more because I think we're down to like 2 or 3, but that's a little more manageable than I think where we end up losing these is on these larger sites where the next day they're out there starting to clear it and nobody's paying attention to my little sign that cost us a couple $100. So anyways, that's kind of our proposal there with the signage is a 2-tier system. It does put an extra cost on to developers, but in the grand scheme of what these are, that's pretty standard practice, again, for them to come and make these signs. I've also seen, we'll talk with some of the local sign companies to see if we can have a little bit of a partner program. When I was in Hoffman Estates, we had 2 sign companies in town that charged, let's say, $200 for the sign, and if it got brought back in good condition, they gave them $100 back, and then they just get to reuse that sign over and over, kind of take off the lettering, and that worked out really well as opposed to someone new making a sign every single time. So we may reach out to, I know we have at least 2 sign companies in town. There's a couple others in Orland and Mokina that are close to, and see if any of them are interested. We don't give recommendations, but if somebody's willing to do something like that, we will let anybody doing a bigger project and needs to get the sign known. So that's about it. We just kind of want to get this on the books. I think it's a good time. We don't have anything controversial in front of us, which it tends to be when this comes up is when somebody's made a mistake. And so to avoid that, I just kind of want to get something. This is just kind of a workshop discussion part of it. We'll come back to you. It's not actually even a public hearing because we're just going to do a policy, a resolution the board passes. But it'll be a recommendation from you guys to the village board to say, here's what we think the public hearing notice requirements are. So that's all I have. Open to any suggestions, questions, comments about it.
Okay, I'll entertain any questions or that. Start at the end. Commissioner Hamilton?
You know, the modern era, a lot of people aren't looking in the newspaper. I think you were kind of
Right.
intimating that. Is it time to do like a Facebook notice, or I think that's kind of old hat anymore too. I'm sure the kids would laugh at me. I mean, where would in the modern era people be looking for electronic notices?
And I guess we haven't fully addressed that as like a requirement in here, but we do, obviously, they're posted on our website, which if somebody's looking for development in a town, that's where they're gonna go. But I guess to catch people's attention a little more would be the Facebook side of things. I believe our village already currently posts the agendas out there, or I guess a link to the meeting or something along those lines. I don't think they like pushing them out on some of the social media platforms that are maybe a little more marketing driven. I meant and a little less business driven, but then they have different accounts, I think, for those. So it's something I can ask our marketing department. If there's some account or something, they can regularly push it out. So, but I do think, and maybe part of this policy could be to clarify, it will always be posted on our website in a specific location. Because I think we even have a quick link to them. If you go to like tinleypark.org/public hearing, I think it'll bring you right to all the public hearing notices.
Okay. Excellent.
So I was just gonna say, my wife pays attention to the patch. And she's always flipping through the patch on her phone. I don't know if if they even do something like public hearing announcements in the patch. But I just know that, I subscribe to the Tribune. I stopped getting the Southtown because it got pretty small. There's not much content, but just an idea.
It's something we can reach out to them, maybe as a less formal one, to see if they want us to send the agendas to them. Because they're typically not going to post the agendas on patch, but they'll pick the things that excite them and maybe they want to
It's
report
all
on.
local interest, and I'm just thinking maybe.
So the
they
corner
have-
fence variance isn't going to
Well,
make the front page,
I
but
wouldn't-
the DR Horton development might. So.
Let's hope the fence variations don't make the front page.
No comment. Comment. That was my idea. The signs though, so they keep disappearing. What are they made of today? You said it's like a real estate sign.
They're actually they're pretty sturdy. Like it is a
Metal?
stronger metal black
The old
frame
metal
with-
realtor sign.
Yeah, with like an actual metal insert.
And Public Works would just install them, right?
No,
No?
I mean, we actually, my zoning administrator basically puts them out there and pulls them out.
Yeah.
So a couple times they've been frozen in the ground and we
Right.
can't do
Right.
anything about it either. So that's happened a few of the
And
time.
you say they disappear, so is there anything on it that says, please return to, or call here for removal, or?
I mean, it's got our name all over
Yeah.
it, but
If they think
maybe
it's
there
just a
is some kind
disposal
of.
thing, construction company, just toss it in the, what do you call it? The waste container, whatever.
Yeah.
Can't think of it right now. Dumpster, there you go, thanks.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. Maybe put something on the back of it.
Yeah, if there's something we can attach to the frame or something, that's.
Please don't discard, or I don't.
And at one
If
point we
damaged,
took.
remit $200 to
At
the
one
Village
point,
of
we
Tinley
took
Park.
deposits for them, but that in itself
Well, it's administrative,
Yeah.
to track them all took so much administrative time.
correct.
Somebody made the decision, that was me, that was like, I'd rather buy more signs every once in a while than have to pay a secretary and it's honestly would just be one of us calling, tracking them down, taking in checks, returning checks.
Yeah.
It's a better use of our time to just
Agreed.
take the risk and if we gotta pay for a new one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but at least identifying something on those, even if it's a sticker or a tag or something we can
Please don't
attach.
discard or something.
Yeah.
Or
Please
throw it away.
call planning department,
Yeah.
and we'll come get it. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Sure,
mean,
Mayor.
so the thing that I was thinking, two things. One is, it strikes me that moving to signs that had like QR codes or those sorts of things on them, where people could just use their phone if they're interested to find out what it is, and you change what the QR code goes to based on, what's coming up, that may actually make those signs usable without changing what's on them, if that makes sense, right?
And QR codes, those free outside, you can pay for it or anything. You can create it yourself.
I guess the only issue would be if it changes, because those signs cost like a few $100 each, so we'd have to we'd have to make sure that QR code didn't change. It would still direct someone to basically the same page.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're doing now. It does direct people to the website on those signs. So
Okay.
it says tinleypark.org/public hearing, but there could be a QR code on there too.
All you can do is swap out the link to where it links to,
Mhm.
on that QR code. But you can swap it out every time you sign up to direct them to the link that's in the
I don't think that would work very well maybe on the bigger public notice signs though, because those are very just kind of formal black letters on a white background. I don't know how they'd print off or how I'd even direct someone to make that and get a QR code on there each time.
Yeah, it would have to be.
But
the
with
QR
our
code would have to be
signs-
Small enough to be captured by.
Yeah. With our signs, it would maybe make sense.
Yeah.
With our smaller ones, as we make new ones, think about that.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking about, you know, which I'm just reminded by the feud between the Park District and the mayor. And that is, you know, the use of the bulletins that go out, for people in the village who sign up for things. I don't think that sending something out once every 2 weeks or whatever, saying, here's what's on the agenda, and if you care, click to this and it'll give you more details, would be too intrusive, right? Those things come up and you can read them, or you can delete them, right? And it's a single thing and it's contained, you know. They have, I don't know what the update is, once every 2 weeks or so, the village just sends an update out. This strikes me as a similar possibility and would probably have better reach than the newspaper, which I understand that's state law and you might not be able to get around that right now.
It's been introduced in state legislature to change that every year for the last like 5 or 6 years. We pay an incredible amount of money per letter to the newspapers, so they have a strong
They
lobby to
lobby,
keep
yeah,
it
yeah,
as a requirement. And that's the only reason why it exists today, because I don't think any common person I've talked to has said that's the right decision now. But yeah, we have to do it, and it always gets struck down from the newspaper lobby, who also write the articles that, you know, the politicians want to put out there, so they have a strong lobby. But yeah, we pay like $1 per letter or something. It's 50 cents per letter or something.
Wow.
I mean, for the little postings, they're like $100 to $200 in the newspaper.
I will say, that I want to piggyback on what Commissioner Merrick said. I agree. I was thinking the same thing. You get those email blasts, and I typically click on them, but as you said, you could kind of go to what's relevant to you or not. That probably does have a wider cast than the newspaper. And even if I have my hands on a newspaper, I'm not looking at that section. I'm looking at sports, news, entertainment. With that said, is there a possibility on the tech end? Of course, you have it posted on the website for the Village of Tinley Park on what's on the agenda. But I'm curious if you could do like a radius search. Put in your address, and then it does a radius search, and it'll net what projects are under review, so that you're searching with something that's relative to your home where you live. If it's 5 miles away, you probably don't care unless you work right by it. But in general, like something that does, and I know that's the kind of the catch-22, because it's very passive. You know, you get a letter, you respond, you open it, but like you have to be active to actually click on a link, put in your address, and so on and so forth. Or even if there was no notification from Tinley Park, if you were to go on the website just to search, you're doing all the activity. But even this gentleman who is doing the petition, he just bought a thing, he was not aware. And that just happens, as people, even in good faith, may not be aware of what's going on. But I think if...
I'd have to talk with we just finally got like a pretty good, they call it like a story map through GIS of our kind of bigger projects going on in the village, for people to kind of see where those are at and get constant updates. So there's a chance maybe we could do something like that is more public hearing based.
Yeah.
I've seen that in other communities, and I think I mentioned it before. Woodridge was a big one that does it, I think Downers Grove. They basically use the GIS in the same way, if you guys happen to recall, the village used it for marketing for the Christmas decorating houses, the Halloween houses. You just basically pull up the village map, and it shows you all, not just public hearings, but anything going on with community development.
Yeah.
And it's all plotted on the
Yeah,
map.
so we have
But it's
that
expensive.
We have that for projects now up there, but it's kind of pick and chose to the projects. But so it's not including the fence variation, that type of stuff. So
It's a lot
maybe
of
there would
upkeep.
be a reason or an ability, and you almost wouldn't do the story map side of that from Woodridge. it'd be something different that would just show all the public hearings from the last year or something on there. We can talk with GIS and see if that's possible. It's not gonna be anything immediate, but we can maybe put that into their queue as a project to work on, with our GIS consortium. So, see what options they have out there for that.
What about the village newsletter?
That I'll have to talk with our marketing department on.
So I subscribed to that, and I don't remember what drove me to do it. I did it before I joined ZBA a couple years ago, but maybe if you put an insert in one of the utility bills that go out, reminding residents, here's where you can go to get current information of what's happening in the village, here's our email, newsletter, whatever. And I'd be curious if marketing can track baseline the subscription now for that newsletter and see if it goes up, if they put that in one of the utility bills, just to try and get more people to pay attention to what's going on.
Yep.
Doesn't cost anything, really, I do read the newsletter.
The email
Yeah,
newsletter
it
ones
comes out
that go
once
out
a
every
week.
couple weeks.
I think it's once a week, 2 weeks, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know they try and keep that a little more
It's light.
marketing driven and
It is,
light,
yeah.
so you can
It's
kind of read it.
events.
So I don't think you're gonna,
Yeah,
it'll be counter to what their goals are to throw a plan commission agenda.
just a
because-
link
Well, you guys are excited about that.
for
Not
public
everybody
interest,
will, but a
little-
link to say
tiny
kind of
section.
upcoming meetings even.
That's at the bottom, that's always in there, upcoming meetings.
They
If
have one for
there's-
they do a thing for the board meetings though, don't they? Or is that in a separate thing that I get? There's an overview of what the agenda is for the
I think
board.
it's separate.
Is that- okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's through that same,
Gotcha.
but maybe that's,
Yeah, you don't want to clutter that thing, but
Yeah,
just
yeah.
throw a link in there for people that might be interested.
or just a really quick blurb of what the items even are that could cut just kind of the headlines of these addresses, project name, and then a link to the agenda or something along those lines. I can talk with Donna in our marketing department to see what their thoughts are. Communications is kind of their bread and butter, so she might have some recommendations of how we can do that.
And I just want to clarify, this is, like the sign and even the emails, this is just to cast a wider net versus the 250 feet from the project. Those people get mailed. And I know, like, we had some Duvan Drive projects, I know we got them at my company's mail regarding that, because my boss said, oh, did you know this is going on? And so, I know those do work because people open up, but once you're outside that 250 feet, and I talked to Lori about this, and it's just a straight 250, if you have a right-of-way there for the road, it's counting that, it's not discounting that. So, and as we discussed, if there was a couple townhomes of a big townhome development, you're gonna send them to everybody in the townhome
Yeah,
development,
we're
not
more
just the.
conservative in the sense that we're actually more liberal with that, at
Yeah.
least as a staff. Like that's the bare minimum. So yeah, sometimes it'll pick 2 townhomes of a 4-unit building. We send it to the other 2 and
Right.
don't go, well, they're outside of the 250, because somebody's gonna get one and go talk to their neighbor in the same building. 7-Eleven was an example of one too, where we had a resident bring concerns about the road that was in the back gaining more traffic. And we sent it to every house on that block or on that street that could conceivably think there was gonna be more traffic, just so they had notice of it. So we try and, but that takes a little bit of forethought on our part, or
Right.
knowledge of where those effects might be. So we do try and branch out a little more if we can. I think even with some of the projects that we think will have more public interest, we have done more posts on social media about them. So when the boulevard was going through, I think they made a couple posts about that, just to let people know where the meetings were. Magnuson Apartments, when that was happening, I think they made a couple extra posts just to make, those drew up some public interest. But that's kind of us needing to know that what's controversial, what's not, what's gonna draw the interest. And we don't always know that, otherwise the whole process really wouldn't be here. So sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So it's always good to have something a little more set and kind of regularly going out, other than it just being us taking a guess if we need to do a little extra.
So I got a couple of
Sure, yeah.
points here. So kind of getting to the heart of what this is about here. I think it'd be really important, I haven't seen the full proposed policy, et cetera, but I think it would be really important to define the policy objective. And this is gonna sound really odd here, but I don't think that the objective here should be marketing and mass information. I think that the current 250 is absolutely fine. I don't see a need to even tier it. I think it's fine, and it has worked as a minimum. And if you stated in there a principle, if you somehow articulated what you just said, right? We have a bare minimum, and we will meet that. There's a state law that requires public notice between this many days and this many days. We will meet that. To me, anything that you do above and beyond that, there's only so much attention span that the general public has, and that needs to be reserved for the marketing department and the positive things that we have going on in the community, the things that we want people to listen to and pay attention to. So things like the ordinary business of government, I think we should be very sparing in that. And there should be a principle, some of that you just articulated, that we will meet our own bare minimum standards. And our objective should be effective and efficient government. And by that, if you have some reason to suspect that a particular hearing might be controversial, it's going to be more efficient if you get the word out there early, right? If you don't, and then you do it, then it's going to be a mess on the back end. So in the interest of efficient government, you would perhaps try to widen your net. But short of that, I don't think the objective is here to fill the seats or fence variations, whatever, right?
And there might be some things that you really do want, like if we're doing planning, you want the public in those things to.
100%, and that's.
So those are the things we really do want to push out and have on those top pages of the market.
So just
to get people.
Boring everyday stuff. You know, although it's more exciting for us when we got some folks out there.
Right. But and to Ken's point, I was just curious, what was one of the drivers? Did like somebody say, I didn't hear about this and I'm 300 feet away?
It's
like,
happened previously, and sometimes it's small stuff, sometimes it's not, and we just go, well, this is kind of what we do. I think it's good government to have something that's a set minimum that I can be held accountable to, or any of us can, to say, you didn't send it to the 250 feet, you didn't do what was expected as a bare minimum. So that, it's more just me thinking it's good government to have this on paper when there is no controversy, so that way it avoids it in the future.
I think it's always a good idea to document policy, and policy is not always what's written down.
Mm-hmm.
Policy is what you do and what everyone knows you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's wise to say this is what we do. We're going to write it down. As long as we're going to do that, is there something else?
Right, do it.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with Commissioner Shaw's, comments about, doing the minimum, or at least doing the notices, right? And then the other comment saying maybe on the email blast, because when I get them, I do look at them. And there you could put like, okay, new projects or new developments in this, here, there, and you could click the link and then you could read it, and then, I'm gonna go to the meetings and such. That's inexpensive. We're also talking like kind of dollars and cents. And and I deal with with this the postings every day, across the states, right? Well, and the majority that the municipality that I work with, the onus on putting the sign is on the developers. So when you say like, oh, we have to buy another sign, that's like crazy. Obviously, I get like the last project I did the other day, it's in Florida. They give us the packet. Here's the requirements for the sign. You find a sign service or whatever, but you build per the specs, and the owner or the client, the proposed owner, they go and get it done, and the village doesn't have to worry about costs, whatever, just meet these specs, and you're done.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't have to worry about ordering signs or stuck, frozen, what have you. You know, there's just.
And that's most
I was
communities,
gonna ask, what do other villages do?
almost every community around here, at least on those larger projects, the onus is on the developer. to
Well, right,
make
because
signs. Yeah,
that's
what I'm proposing here is not gonna get some backlash from a developer doing that. Actually, most of them, well, not most of them, but most of the county is definitely Will County actually even makes the developer send out all the letters and everything. So they maybe will supply them with a list of addresses, and they have to do all the outreach on the letters.
right.
I kind of like keeping that in-house because I know it got done correctly.
Right, yeah, I think that's.
Rather than,
Yeah.
and the county actually makes it be an attorney. Like if you were gonna file a fence variation, like you need an attorney for most of their stuff.
No, but all.
We try and be a little more friendlier, so
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
I mean-
expect residents to be able to consistently do some of that. Same with the signs, I'm not gonna have a resident asking for a setback variance or a shed variance, make a large sign to put in their front yard. So I think that's why we try to weigh those, but for the
Oh, no,
big
yeah,
ones.
something like that, yeah, I mean, you won't need to, but for like a new development,
Yeah,
again, kind of like the one that I just mentioned, the one in Florida. You know, they provide you all the document, you know, they say, okay, send us the mailing list, because they want proof that you mailed it, has to be notarized and whatever, so, it's, the onus is on you, but we want the proof that people were notified and signs there and, all that, so.
yep, and I
You
think
know.
we're still keeping some of that here, with the signs for the smaller projects and the mailings. But
Right.
for those big projects those little signs don't do anything. Again, they just disappear on a large development. In most communities, I think most of the public would expect to see a white sign that's public notice on it. That's a little more attention grabbing of something's about to happen here, and if you care, you can go look it up.
And I would just even further say, even with the signs, like, unless you have like a walking community where there's sidewalks, people are driving by, you're not gonna read the print on the sign, right? I mean, and we've had different sites here that don't lend themselves for people walking, maybe somebody who's very close to the neighborhood likes to jog on the side of the road if there's no sidewalks. But generally speaking, if you're going past and whether it's perpendicular or parallel to the road, or whatever, depending on the readability of it, it's just, you'll notice something different, I guess, as you speed by it if you're in your car.
Well, I think in anything we do, there was a period of time, I think probably predates all of you guys here, where Tinley Park had a reputation of not being friendly to development of any kind, not being friendly to business. I actually like your philosophy there, what you just said. I'm gonna keep that in-house because number one, I know it's done. Number two, someone doesn't have to spend money for a sign variance on an attorney, So I think that those are good principles there. I would say that in everything, even in the big projects, when you think about what are we trying to achieve, or what gap are we trying to fill here, because like with the big projects, some of it's awareness, and I don't know, in some respects, that is marketing, like, hey, we want you to know there's a Pete's going in over here, right? Yeah, we're gonna, it's a bit of advertising there, and that's a good one. For me personally, the small signs, when someone is getting a setback variance or, a fence or whatever, personally, why bother? I mean, if we think that we're not making the right people aware, that's one thing. But I think going the extra step on something small like that and having a sign out there, I think it just, we're inviting something that's maybe not necessary. And again, in stating our principles and our objectives there, we set kind of the minimum. There's always the possibility that you can look at it and say, yeah, I think the neighbors aren't gonna like this one here, so yeah. However you would wanna craft that, you could make it an administrative judgment call. but for me personally, I don't think I'd
And that's,
support
those
that.
signs on the residential ones are something most communities I've seen and worked in don't do, on kind of the residential stuff, or if it's a sign variation, putting a sign up for a sign sometimes is a little weird. So it's been those, right now, it's actually, we probably don't put them up for most of those variances anyways, because we need to use them on our larger projects for the signs I do, that warrants more attention. So without the policy, actually, right now, we actually probably don't put them very often on those residential ones.
I think it came about because, 7 years ago today, actually, we had a very controversial development going on, and there was a bit of a backlash, and then there was an oversensitivity, I think. So I don't know that it's.
So that's a good thought to maybe make it not a requirement there, but maybe something that we can consider
That's my two
in certain
concerns.
situations.
I think anytime we can scale back government requirements and all that, as long as we're thinking about what the objective is,
Yeah, and I would even just say, like, I'm thinking of the D.R. Horton lot. If you put the sign along Oak Forest Avenue, where you have a railroad, to the one side, or you put it along Ridgeland, where you have, residential, if you send the letters, the residences are still getting that. So, like, I don't know, in terms of that, and it's such a big area, if you don't go down Oak Forest, you might never see that. Oak Forest Avenue, if you don't go down Ridgeland, you might never see that either. So I guess it should be case dependent. If it is something that, sets off alarm bells, you want to get the word out, just so that the public doesn't feel like they're.
And I think maybe in that policy, we build in some ability for staff to make it clear we have the ability to ask developers to do. If it's a big enough development like that one, maybe they should be doing 2 signs, right? There should be one on Oak Forest and one on Ridgeland, if we get to that.
And those signs, though, that $200 gets absorbed in their applicant cost or whatever, right? I'm imagining, right?
Well, it won't be now. It'll be put onto them to just go get it made and put up.
Okay.
So it's just gonna be the cost of the development side of it with them. All the mailings and the public notice in the newspaper, that's kind of what the fees cover.
Right.
And our fees are not high. They basically cover that.
Okay.
Certainly not covering any staff time or anything like that, so.
one thing you could consider on that, I don't know which approach makes it easier for you guys, and again, I'm all for it, let's keep this simple and efficient. If you, and I'm sure you could somehow define a large project, right? So you define a large project, and then you simply make it a requirement, but staff is authorized to waive the requirement, right? So it's not like they don't have to do it unless you tell them to do it. That's a little different, right? So maybe for large ones, you make it a requirement, but you have administrative authority to waive it under whatever circumstances. Whichever way, because that way you're the good guy because you waived it, as opposed to you're the bad guy because you're making them do something that not everyone has to do.
And we can make it under unique circumstances and stuff too, because personally, I'm the conservative type, so unless the village manager's like, yes, or we talk to one of the, like Trustee Mueller, who's over our department, and he goes, yeah, not a big deal. I'm probably not waiving anything because I don't want anything on me. But if it's very, very clear that something is maybe a little above and beyond, or we didn't think of this situation and it's not a big deal, then maybe we build in some flexibility wording in there that says, kind of in unique circumstances, staff has the ability to waive this, but we make it the default that they do have to do it.
No, for sure, because if you do leave that administrative, they have the, they can say yes or no or whatever, then that kind of leads into that gray area fishing to say why did he get it and I'm not getting it? Oh, so I gotta put $200 in each sheet? You know, I mean, no, serious, you know?
No,
I do like to keep
So
it very
that- that's-
narrow, and if this was a code, I hate the word administrative variance and stuff. It either needs to be yes or no, because then it comes back on us and it gets gray and it depends who's interpreting it. And so we like to keep those out from just it being a policy perspective. You want to build in a little bit of flexibility because there's not a variance option, right? So if something is really weird, you want the ability to go, okay, this doesn't really apply here, but from a code perspective, I hate administrative. Like, I don't want it to be our judgment call over something. Ever, it should either be black and white, and then if it is unique and rare, they'll come before you guys. But
Right.
I'm hearing you, so we can maybe work on a wording that builds in just a little bit of flexibility in rare situations that something really is excessive, I guess, based on the project scale.
to me, it all comes down to just being deliberate about why we're doing it. Knowing it. If it's like the public notice, that's a legal requirement. Got to do it. Let's just try to be as efficient as possible, and make sure we get it done. Short of an external legal requirement, let's just figure out why we're doing it. And if we can't explain why we're doing it, then maybe we shouldn't.
So maybe I can jump in here because I'm in a different place on this, right? So I don't think our job is to be as efficient as possible and to, I do think on fence variances and those things, I mean, the neighbors need to know and then they get to come. But usually it's like the decision's pretty set for us, right? In terms of if we're following the guidance and the rules, it's almost always pretty clear cut, whether we agree with it or not. But I am interested in not necessarily filling up seats, but as we think about larger conceptual things about the future development of Tinley, of having as wide of a range of voices as possible in the room. And those are the big projects we're talking about, right? Adding the Loyola out there, the hotels, or thinking about what's an extended stay or not an extended stay is about the future livability of this community. And I know we stand in as voices that provide recommendations, but I don't think necessarily that we speak on behalf of the village or the villagers, right? So I always think for the bigger things, even if I would also say, even if you sent out a major e-blast to people, you would seldom get people in the seats, right? So it wouldn't result in a bunch of people coming to talk about somebody's fence on the other side of the village, but maybe you might get more people who are there and involved on regular projects to get feedback or just to hear, which I don't think would be a harm, or change the way in which we act when we're here. So I was happy to see, I think on 2 occasions, the Odyssey one, which was slightly uncomfortable hearing, but resulted in people finding out things that that made it here that nobody knew. And then the other one is the one on 191st Street, right? Which was maybe the first one I sat on, which still doesn't look like anything's happened over there. But having the folks who live in that area who were impacted by that come and share their stories was pretty impactful. So anyways, I doubt that being more aggressive in pushing information would result in filling seats and changing much, but I think at least it creates the opportunity for folks who might be interested to be more engaged.
But just to clarify that, because I don't want it to seem like we disagree. I totally agree with you on that.
Even better.
And in fact, anybody who's known me for about 5 minutes knows, I mean, I'm a nut about this stuff. I'm a policy geek, right? I don't expect that everyone is. And so when I talk about efficiency, I'm thinking in terms of, all the other stuff the village is trying to put out there. And there's, only so much bandwidth that people can absorb. And,
Or people can do.
if we're trying to push out, this important marketing stuff, but we're also flooding them with administrative stuff like this, their eyes
a
are going to
balance.
glaze over.
It's a
So we have
balance.
to be very careful about that. On the other hand, if we ever go down the road of engaging in a new comprehensive plan or something, that's a big process. That's one that you do aim to fill the seats. You do have multiple public hearings or workshops and all that, that's one that you're beating the bushes trying to get people to come out, because, you know, that's has huge impact. So,
And I think even looking at the ways we do it now and questioning that will maybe help improve it. I just don't want to speak on behalf of Donna in the marketing department, who knows that stuff very well. And again, they might have some better ideas of where they can put it in, where it can be consistent, the ways it can be the best bang for their buck. But if we all go, hey, on your email blast, the very first thing on every email needs to be the agenda, that would be a terrible choice,
And I
right?
also
So
understand
I'm gonna
doing-
kind of defer to her to
It's
see what,
propaganda, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to
Real, right? It's meant to push out a particular image of village on purpose, which is helpful to all of us. So I get that part.
because there's also other meetings and stuff people may want to go to, right? So that maybe I'm just gonna talk with her and kind of see where her head's at and which ways we can push it out. Even doing a separate maybe email blast. Do we have a separate email group of people that say, I'm interested in getting the agenda for the plan commission sent to me every meeting? If somebody's interested in that, they can sign up to get that and make
you know,
sure
that's a
that.
good,
So you have people that are policies that want to see it and they want it, then we can certainly, and that in itself could be pushed out then, right? If you want to know about public hearings and plan commission meetings, sign up for this kind of email chain. I don't know if we have the capacity right now, but it certainly exists, so
mean,
I can
probably
talk to
somebody
her
would have
about
to write
that.
it, right?
that's, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I, outside of my role here, I mean, personally, I've been sharing online the plan commission agendas like all the time. And very rarely do I get any traction on it, but I'm like, hey, come to a meeting.
Where are you sharing it? Okay.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
So, public groups. So, not gonna, we're not live, are we?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm advertising or anything, but no, I do. I put it out there, and you know, rarely does anyone even comment, but it's out there.
Any other comments? Commissioner Gatto?
I have a question,
Yeah.
just kind of a tactical micro thing. Is there a requirement on the durability of the signs? Because when you said these signs cost like $200, you know, I had an armful of like political signs here back when we were doing that stuff, and those weren't $200 a piece signs.
They're usually like larger, it's typically plywood or like wood-based frames, because they're bigger signs that need to go in pose, and they have to stay up the whole time. So that's kind of one thing, is there's multiple ways they can do it. Sometimes they're the U-lock channel things that go into the ground. Sometimes they're wood posts, but it's got to be durable enough. And I think that's one of the reasons why working with specific sign companies to make sure they get something that will be consistent, because if it blows down, well, then we have a decision to make, right? We have to continue the hearing because the sign wasn't up for a week and nobody knew about it. So we do usually push, most of the ones I've seen are all basically painted or treated kind of plywood, or stronger wood that's just white with black letters on it.
So the
But
little
then
political
see-
signs on a little piece of wire and plastic stretched across it would not meet that requirement?
No, not
Then
for
you
the
don't care
large
about it.
developments. They're gonna be like 4x6,
Yeah.
kind of larger plywood signs. For the ones we put in the ground now, like I said, those are more durable than the political ones. In some communities, I've seen the political signs. I think you said you used them in Florida, Michael. I don't like those because they are just they're not very
They're
durable.
throwaway.
They're gonna blow away.
Yeah.
I'd be ordering a lot of those. They'd be cheaper to order though. The ones we have now are pretty durable, but even those have gotten damaged. I mean, when you back a truck over it, nothing's gonna hold up, so. But the bigger ones for the new developments will be substantially stronger and better quality.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? If not, Dan, do you have?
Nope,
what you
I think
need?
we got enough direction. We'll come back to you tweak a few things, get some answers, and have the actual policy kind of put together for you guys to look at.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, which is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Anthony DeAngelis on behalf of Intercontinental Real Estate and Development a special use for a substantial deviation to the Odyssey Club planned unit development at Olympus Drive and Apollo Court in the R5 PD Low Density Residential Odyssey Club PUD zoning district. May I have a motion to continue the public hearing to a future date?
Yeah, really quickly, I'll just say it got remanded from the village board back to you guys as the plan commission. There's just some open items with the association, staff and the attorneys are working through. So we're just recommending this get continued kind of indefinitely. But they are working on it. So I've talked with them. They're working with the associations, but we just don't have a date and I don't want to just keep continuing it. So we'll continue it till they have that resolved, and then we will send out new notices for this, just because it's been so long.
Sure.
So we're just recommending a motion to continue it.
Yeah. Okay, so,
And I have a motion kind of drafted for you in the
sure.
PowerPoint.
okay, if somebody can make a
Sure.
motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue the public hearing for item number 3 as noted on the agenda until all association issues are resolved as determined by the village attorney.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Truxell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. So we'll move on to the good of the order. Staff, do you have anything to add?
Just a few things. First off, we wanted to note that Commissioner Tibbetts unfortunately recently resigned with the commission. So with that, we look forward to having a new commissioner hopefully join us for the next plan commission. This was former chair of our zoning board of appeals. So he's anticipated to go to be appointed at the next village board meeting. So that would be Steve Sepisi, and hopefully he'll be with us here on the 16th.
Okay.
And then just a couple other quick things. Commercial permits, so we are getting close into having those available online. And as far as residential permits, those are already going online. We do have some express permits that we've been working to help residents when, with certain limited types of scopes, the permits can process within just a couple of days. So this would be like an HVAC permit or something like that. So,
Another
yeah.
thing to dwell on that one, as we move them online, it just makes sense to have these two things. And then that's really helped us. Stuff that takes very little review, just can get expedited, take a couple days, compared to getting in line with all the other stuff that we really take a look at. So that's worked out really well, and I think it's something we can carry over into the commercial permits too. Still no online payment system, but we're working on it, so there's a chance eventually nobody will have to come in. At least right now, you still have to come in and pay and pick it up. That being mentioned at all, but it helps get quicker for a lot of people. So taking little steps.
the only other thing I wanted to mention is that we were anticipated to have a case at 7413 Duvan come to us, but the petitioner has worked with the village to apply to get the building in code compliance. So work with us on removing their paint and to do a brick stain. So that is why we pulled that item off of the agenda, and hopefully with what they have coming in for the permit, we'll get them to meet code.
It likely won't happen until spring. the
Right,
actual
with
work,
weather.
Just weather dependent, but if we have a contract and something that'll bring that into compliance, so that was the outcome of not.
Okay, excellent.
Is that the fish market?
No, it's not the fish one. That's, Trying to think of the name
I
of
believe
it.
it's like Cell Windows is one of the tenants of the building.
It was the last meeting we had it, it was in front of us, and it was continued, yeah. Yeah, Arcos Environmental, yeah. With that, no other, news?
I'll just quickly note, we're working on the fence regulations, Michael's working out. So we'll have some discussion on that. I know that was
Okay.
a consistent discussion point that I said we'd come back to, so we're working on it, to have some discussion there about what we can do. As Magnuson Apartments came up too, I can let you know the permit's essentially approved at this point. Contractors are listed and approved on it. And we've been notified it's pre-manufactured panels on there, so those are in production. Some have already been done. The developer said about 2 to 3 weeks. I always tend to double things when I get told timing on development projects, but we're being told 2 to 3 weeks that you could actually start seeing active construction. They do have people out there. They are finishing some underground work that happened with the foundation, that was with the foundation permit. So they are doing some work out there right now, but it's minimal. But there's a chance within the next 2 to 3 weeks or a month or so, you could actually see maybe some walls going up. They're gonna start with the clubhouse, and then as that's kind of hits the halfway point, they're gonna start working on the first building. And I believe start from 191st Street and then kind of work their way away from there. So that way, I think they want the visibility to kind of draw some attention and hopefully get some renters in there pretty quickly. So, looking forward to
Good
that
deal.
moving forward.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Moving on to receive comments from the public, saying no public here. Move on to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
So
So
moved.
move.
I got Commissioner Truxell first, and then seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 8:25 PM. Good night.